What do you know about Buddhism in ancient China?
Not too much. Not too much at all.
Buddhism most likely spread to China during the 1st century BCE. Buddhism's initial pressure on Chinese culture came from two Indian Buddhist missionaries. They came to China in 65 CE and built the White Horse Monastery to commemorate the horses on which they rode to China. The mysticism in Buddhism was reminiscent of Taoism, therefore Buddhism appealed to the Chinese. Prior to the Han Dynasty, the Chinese were not concerned with the metaphysical philosophies, instead with how to live everyday life. Buddhism was likely successful in China because of the turmoil caused by the wars subsequent to the Han Dynasty. Buddhism goes against most native Chinese philosophies, as it is speculative, hard to understand, and involves escape from social responsibility and family obligations, according to Professor Scott Morton. Despite the contrast with traditional Chinese culture, Buddhism still spread into Chinese court life. Buddhas and other Buddhist figures were often sculpted on all mediums. It is evident that the first sculptures were based on drawings brought back from Chinese pilgrims to India. The earliest Buddhist artworks show traditionally Indian clothing, postures, and features. Slowly, the art becomes more Chinese through a slow process known as Sinicization. Even though the Tang Dynasty would eventually attempt to smother Buddhism, it persisted through the Yuan Dynasty via a form of Neo-Buddhism.
Tell me everything that you know about the Mongol influence on Chinese art.
The spread of Neo-Confucianism, the conception of the Imperial Hanlin Academy, as well as increased interest and accessibility to philosophy and art pushed Chinese society to new artistic levels during the Song period. However, these advancements in culture did not help the eventual submission of China to foreign powers. For the first time in China's history, it was subjugated to foreign rule in the late 13th century by the Mongol Empire. Although having complete political control, the Mongols understood their lack of cultural experience and slowly adopted Chinese cultural customs. The overtaking of the Song court by the Mongols forced the hands of many court officials. Some decided to go into retirement, seeking to cut their ties to their foreign rulers. In effect, this freed a high number of educated and talented men from their burdens of government responsibility. For some of these men, their free time gave them the ability to fully devote themselves to the arts. As a result, the Yuan dynasty established a tradition of literati art. This development of literati art shifted the nature of Chinese painting itself. Under foreign rule, many artists used their skills as a method of self-expression, rather than trying to convey meticulous realism as seen during the Song dynasty. In fact, many of these literati painters who desired escapism from politics found themselves using their art to convey political messages of disinterest and disapproval. This could be seen in all three aspects of Yuan art: calligraphy, poetry, and painting, the three perfections. Calligraphic brush techniques expanded during the Yuan period. Poetry was included on most paintings that were metaphors for the disconnection between the artist and his surroundings. Unlike the careful reproduction of details seen in monumental landscapes during the Song dynasty, the interest shifted from landscape to the painter and his reinterpretation of nature. Not until the Age of Discovery and Western expansion, hundreds of years later in East Asia, did China once again experience foreign influence on their artistic culture.
What do you know about the British Opium Wars?
I don't know too much about that one.
The Ming and early Qing dynasties were notoriously reticent to allow foreign trade in China, believing that it would cause disarray in the Chinese system. However, in the 1680s, the Qing dynasty relaxed its strict regulations on foreign trade, allowing the British to begin trading in 3 different Chinese cities. The late 1600s and 1700s saw a heavy demand in Britain for Chinese goods, such as tea, pottery, and other decorative arts. However, there was very little demand in China for British goods, forcing the British to pay for Chinese goods in pure silver. This caused an enormous trade deficit that was unsustainable for British traders. In order to overcome this, the British needed to come up with a good that would be highly demanded by the Chinese. This good was opium. Through their extensive trade with China, the British had a strong influence on Chinese art and society itself. Opium usage, while initially resisted by the government, spread to both wealthy and poor members of Chinese society. Subject matter also changed in Chinese art as artists worked to both represent the changes in society that they experienced, as well as create goods that would pique the interests of the British buyers.